Hi, Darrin.
Great. Hi. How you doing, Evie?
Thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank
appreciate
you for
you
having
taking.
me.
Thank you. So I wanted to reach out to you because you have a seasoned career in television, and some of which includes my favorite TV shows. So I wanted to talk to you about some of the beautiful locations that you have displayed for us on screen. Uh,
Absolutely, I would love to.
Wonderful. So I actually wanted to get into a little bit of an introduction into your career.
Sure.
Is Knock First your first location job?
Oh, you know what? Almost. Almost. When I started out in the industry, like many people of my generation, I started in reality TV.
Oh,
So I did a bunch of shows. I'm not sure if all of them ended up on IMDb, but I think the very first thing I worked on was a show called Merge. It was
yes.
hosted by Lisa Rinna, and it was one of those shows where, a couple would get married, and while they're off on their honeymoon, redo their house for them. And so I started out as a PA on that, and I worked a bunch of different jobs, and I was technically was a location manager on that show by the end, but really for a lot of reality TV, location manager just means the PA that's in charge of cleaning the house. That was a big thing at the time. I've tried very hard to find it streaming somewhere because I was on the show too, because they had the PAs were the ones that would move all the furniture. Of 24-year-old me wearing a black t-shirt moving a bunch of furniture around.
That's incredible. What network was that on? Do you remember?
Lifetime, I think. I think it was on
Incredible.
Lifetime. Yeah.
Incredible. What do you consider like your first big location manager job that you could let like was like, yes, I am a location manager and this is
Oh my. So very early on in my career, and I did when I started out, I did a lot of reality TV and I worked a lot of like low budget things before I got into locations. I worked a little bit of every department. I was a grip, I was electric, I was art department. I did kind of a little bit of everything before I settled into locations. So it was probably about 2 years into being out in California, I got my first real locations job, and that was a pilot for a TV show. Never got picked up, but it was directed by Harold Ramis. And
Oh,
so I got to work with Harold Ramis. Like,
Ghostbusters.
yeah, Ghostbusters, absolutely. Egon Spengler. I got to work with him extremely early in my career when I was still, I still had stars in my eyes and stuff like that. And what a just incredibly nice human being he was.
Oh my.
And, treated everybody like they were made out of gold. He was incredible. So yeah, and he died a few years later, which was very, very sad.
Oh
But
no.
I feel so fortunate to have had that one pilot with him, which was just great.
Well, that's the nice thing. What I love to hear from people who are older than me that they get to work with the old Hollywood crowd. They got to interact with this, like they got to brush up against it. It was the last final years, and they kind of like taught people how to treat other people. So I thought
Yes.
that that was such a beautiful thing. Whenever I hear stories about people who have notoriety in the community and in the film industry, that they end up having this great reputation. So that's wonderful.
Yep, there was a time I think where film crews felt a lot more like family. And every once in a while you'll find a show where people have been together for a long time and you get that. But everything's so profit driven right now
Yeah.
that you lose a lot of that kind of warmth that we had back in the day.
Absolutely. It also happens with streaming, if you would agree. Like you have these shows that are turning around in a couple of weeks and a few months, and then you don't see that crew ever again sometimes.
Yeah.
But with these network television shows that used to happen, you would stay on for so many years, and you would have the opportunity to kind of like have this family. So that is a great point. We've kind
Yeah.
of lost
It
that.
It's so interesting now because you'll get a show and it's like, oh my God, it's a hit. Everybody loves it. Everybody's talking about it. Let's hope we get another season, And it used to be if you had a hit, then you were guaranteed to get 4 or 5 seasons. But now you just never know.
It makes no sense. But you have kind of cemented yourself in television. You have been a part of multiple seasons of multiple shows. The most close to my heart is No Good Deed and now Dead to Me, which I have caught up on and I found fantastic.
Oh, great. I'm glad you liked it.
I also got the opportunity to watch Self-Reliance, which I
Oh,
thought
yes.
Oh my God, what an incredible movie. You have
Yeah.
to talk about that because I watched Self-Reliance and I thought, this is Los Angeles, but this is kind of like a Los Angeles that we haven't seen. Like, these are not the typical
Yes.
warehouses, these are not the typical homes. Everything about this feels like suburbia, but it's not perfect suburbia. It's like a different kind of grittier side of this community. So,
It had a really cool feel to it,
yeah.
didn't it? So when I the first time I met Jake Johnson, I had just they handed me the script and I read it and then I talked to him about, 20 minutes later and I told him, first of all, I said the script's super cool. It's really cool and it's really funny and it's a great story. But I told him the thing I liked most about it, as someone who has worked in, big budget and low budget and whatever, I said the thing I thought was so interesting about this movie was the every time you're going along in the movie and you can tell something's about to get really expensive, it veers off into something that is a lot more affordable. And I said that had to be on purpose. And he got this huge smile on his face. And he's like, I'm so glad you said that because, yes, I've been so much in independent film. I know what's expensive. I know what isn't. And I wanted to make this movie, and have it be under budget. And so, yes, I wrote the whole thing thinking it was, trying to find the most cost-effective way to do all these scenes. And I was like, you got it. You nailed it. This is everything you've done here. It'll never be easy. It's never easy, but
No.
everything you've done here is so possible to do, even with a small budget. And so I think we ended up getting along very well after that because I think we saw eye to eye on kind of the difficulties and he was so willing to go for the solutions for all of those. And yeah, so the locations in Self-Reliance, I think we wanted something that was weird. We wanted something that was weird, and honestly, I think so much of that comes from the production designer Grace. She did like just such a great job. A lot of the things you're seeing there, you have seen before. Like we did Lacey Street, which is a very popular place to shoot. You've
Yes.
seen it in a million movies like Saw and stuff like that. But what she was able to do with it, with these big murals and stuff like that, she made it into a place that you've never seen before, which I thought was wonderful. But
That's wonderful when a
yeah,
director kind of like takes the lead to kind of understand that if he wants this script to happen, there needs to be kind of like an understanding with locations. Like we can't be shooting in mansions every single day. We can't be on a popular street. We can't be on one of the bigger, busier boulevards. So
yeah.
all of these things kind of come into play. And the fact that you have a director who's like knowledgeable about that is, I can't imagine like a better situation.
Yeah,
You
and he was so excited. He was so excited about the locations. I've never seen anybody who had more fun on scouts than him. And then I would get phone calls from him. Sometimes it would be over the weekend, or sometimes like a scout would wrap up and he's like, no, 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 come back here, walk down the street. I just found the bar. Like you got to come talk to these people. And so I would go and like Jake was probably one of the best location scouts I ever had. He wanted to be in the movie all the time. So he was always going out looking at things, talking to people, sending me back photos. He was just so into it.
Oh my God. Yeah, and we see La Cita and the beautiful interior
Yes.
too, which was so nice to see. 'Cause
Lacita is exactly that was the one we were scouting something else. We were downtown and he was walking back to his car and saw that place and called me and sent me over.
it's a great find. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
With
Lucida
that,
was a really interesting one because it was much different in the script initially.
really.
It was almost kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese arcade style thing was his initial idea for that. And we saw a couple things and it wasn't quite gelling and he was just kind of like, just find me something cool and I'll write to it. And so that's kind of that kind of opened me up to like a lot of different things and I was never really hitting exactly what he wanted until he's like, no, this is it, Lucida. This is the place right here.
Wow, that's incredible. I love
Yeah.
that. His home is also really interesting. It's kind of in a it's not on a street, but it's kind of like on a flag lot, on a corner, on a side, which was really cool because it's not like the typical Los Angeles home that you see. It's like a beautiful cottage looking home. So I thought that was an interesting find as well. Um,
That house is in RSI Pomona. RSI Pomona has a street of houses
What?
that are, that used to belong, that was basically an old hospital, an old asylum situation there. And they had a little mini street of houses where the staff lived
Oh my God.
while they were there. And all of that stuff is now available for filming.
Ugh.
So it's one of the greatest places to scout because you just like walk down the street and every door is open. You just walk in, take a look.
It's like a lot. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
oh yeah, it's great. It's absolutely like a back lot. It's
That's
perfect.
amazing. Do you find yourself like in your day-to-day life when you're walking and trying to enjoy your life, finding places that you want to scout and like, oh, I should take a picture of this and I'll remember it for later? Or do you ever even get to leave the house because with location?
No, I do, and I was just funny the other day. We were scouting for the show. We were kind of doing a logistics pass on this neighborhood, um, going through and saying like, yeah, we got to talk. We're going to be shutting down the street, so we got to talk to all these people. But that house right there, make sure we scout it because that house is really cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but someday I'm going to use that house. So make sure you go
Yeah.
get pictures. When you talk to them, go get some pictures of it. What I act honestly, what I find what catches my eye more than anything is big empty parking lots.
Oh,
That is the one thing. Whenever I'm driving around and I see a big empty parking lot, I'm instantly like, "What's around here? What can I shoot and make use of this parking lot?" Because they're so hard to find in LA now.
oh my God. How ironic. Like one of the most car-centric cities in the world, and
Yeah,
we are
yeah,
running out of parking lots. Thank God for Joe's parking lots in downtown, and then we have the few from the churches in Hollywood.
yep,
So that's
yeah.
about it.
And that's I would say if I had to say what's the biggest change I've seen in the 20 years I've been out here, yeah, it's parking lots. They're disappearing at an incredible rate, which I mean, I understand the economics of it. It's those big empty lots make, there it's expensive property and you want to put something on it. And
Yes.
in a lot of those cases you can build garages underneath, but that doesn't work for us,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
there's
those
nothing you
huge
can't you
trucks.
can't park you can't park 18 wheelers
No.
under a building.
Is it an independent film? Would you consider
Yes.
Self-Reliant an independent? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And when you kind of think about your Netflix experiences and Self-Reliance, is there a vast difference? Are you always trying to come under the dollar? Are you just working with the people to kind of give them the number that they want? What's your approach to those two projects?
You know what's so funny? So I worked on the fourth season of Arrested Development.
Hmm.
And that was one of the first things that Netflix, well, like a Netflix original picture. I think they had done Lilyhammer before that, and they shot House of Cards, but it hadn't been released yet. So them bringing back this cult favorite Arrested Development, it was one of the first things they did. And they gave Mitch Hurwitz, the creator, a lot of leeway in order to do what he needed to do because it was such a logistically difficult show. Because these actors were not, when they shot the first three seasons, it was the actors hadn't hit it yet, and when we came back to do the fourth season, everyone was an A-list star. So, and they all had previous engagements. So the scheduling of that was just very difficult, and Netflix basically gave him whatever he wanted in order to make that happen. Fast forward to now, and Netflix is a lot more budget conscious. And so, there's the blank check is not there anymore. Now it's a lot more,
Wow.
it's trying to make it, and Netflix will. And I think it's a trend you're seeing really just over the past couple of years with all of the different studios, is they're a lot more willing to step in and say, no, you can't do this. That's too expensive. Which is unfortunate because I think a lot of these, the creative decisions come from, it needs to happen like this. This is important to telling the story. And I think when you get too budget conscious about all of those creative decisions, you just kind of like hammer them down and hammer them down and hammer them down. You're not going to get those masterpieces
Yeah.
anymore, which only come from giving the creatives, the free rein to do it.
That is, yeah, that's so great.
So to answer your question, I do think, yeah, yeah. There's obviously we had a much bigger budget on No Good Deed than we did on Self-Reliance. So I do think that I mean, I had a lot of budget conversations with Jake on that show, which I normally that's not we don't have budget conversations with the directors. It's
Yes.
we get them what they want, and if they can't afford it, we tell the producer, and the producer has that hard conversation. But with that one, it was the budget was such a such a driving force. We wanted to make sure we were getting every dollar on the screen type of thing. So we would just have a lot of conversations. And RSI Pomona was the cheapest place we would shoot. So we would kind of look at the budget and say, okay, how many days do we have to shoot at RSI to be able to afford shooting these other locations? And that was the balance we were trying to find. Yeah.
A lot of the movie also takes place at nighttime. Is this something that you're considering when you're doing locations? I mean, of
Oh yeah.
course, we have to worry about like sound and neighbors and kind of like accommodating for that. But is it ever beneficial to shoot at nighttime in Los Angeles, or is it just doesn't really?
It is definitely beneficial to shoot sometimes depending on what you're doing. If you're doing driving work,
Yeah,
if you want to I mean, like you can't shut down the freeway
yeah,
in the middle of the day, you know? You
yeah,
can do it at night.
yeah.
And I've done it at night a couple times. You got to find the right piece of the freeway to do it on. But yeah, so there are certain things you can only do at night.
Yes.
Neighborhoods, I hate shooting at night, of course. I
Yeah,
hate the idea of waking everybody up. And when we do those things, we always make sure we're trying to be as communicative with everybody as possible
yeah.
to let them know that like this is, there's this thing that's going on. What can we do to make this less of an impact on you? Can we flag off your windows? What can we do to try to make it,
Yeah.
not the worst night of your life?
I think that one thing that I think viewers might not know is that you kind of accomplish filming, skipping forward to No Good Deed, in one of the bougiest and hardest neighborhoods to kind of approach, which is Hancock Park.
Yes. Yep.
You are in a community that is not necessarily like gives off this idea of a big vibe of like nobody can film over here, but you would be surprised at the neighbors and their like kind of discrepancy with filming sometimes because I've had the opportunity to film in Hancock Park and witness myself how difficult it can be to kind of like get neighbors down to a reasonable number, pay them off, talk to the council, talk to the local city board, all of those things that kind of come into play with these communities. Was Hancock Park the first choice for No Good Deed, or was there other
Well,
communities?
it was scripted as Los Feliz.
As Los Feliz, yes.
And so, of course, it was Stephenson Crossley did a lot of the prep scouting for it. He found a lot of the big houses before I came on. All of that happened right like when the strikes were kind of like breaking things up. So he went in, he scouted a bunch of stuff with the production designer Nina, and they were able to find a lot of but they started in Los Feliz because they wanted to try to get that feel
Mm.
before they ended up in Hancock Park. And yeah, like Hancock Park it's very challenging. It's very shot. I mean,
Mm.
people shoot a lot there, and so I totally understand. If
Oh,
anybody feels like, I've people complain and say this isn't a backlot, it's a neighborhood, and I get that.
yes.
100% I understand it. We don't walk into anybody's neighborhood and think that we own it. We don't walk into anywhere and with the attitude that, that this is the
Like
we
just
always I should say we always walk into every neighborhood with the attitude that we are guests in the neighborhood and that we do everything we can to accommodate everybody and make our show.
yes, I think that that's a wonderful comment that you made. I think that a lot of people just believe that no location manager believes that if you can just pull a permit, you're allowed to film here. There has to be like a certain level of decorum that you have to complete and
Yep.
kind of like a checklist before you can actually film here. Because
Yep.
technically, when you do pull the permit and you do pay your dues, you're welcome to film there. There's no law against not filming once you pull your permit. But you want to have a great relationship with people in that community. So having that level of communication is so important. Speaking of that,
Yeah,
it's
I was going to say the communication is I think that's the key to everything is trying to find how do we resolve the issue that you have in the best way possible because I think there's kind of a culture that's grown up in LA over the years of of the money of saying like well it's just it's I'm going to see a truck across the street so you should pay me money and the biggest problem with that is that's not the culture in Atlanta.
Mhm.
That's not the culture in other countries. And so so when we spend tons of money in a neighborhood or in a, any kind of district here in LA, those numbers they add up, and then they look at the budget and say, can we continue to film in California?
Mhm.
It's cheaper to do it elsewhere. So that I think is always trying to find those communication avenues to say, if your problem is parking, can I save a spot for you?
Yes.
If your problem is that you have a nurse that comes to check on your father every day, let's make sure your nurse has a parking space.
Yeah.
Give her my number. I'll land her somewhere. Like those types of things, whatever we can do to kind of accommodate those situations.
Stories I've heard all too well. Have you had any houses that were affected in this whole recent
Maddie's house burned down.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That neighborhood, which was so lovely to us, we shot at a couple different houses. We shot stuff of Jake running down the street. And that neighborhood was so wonderful and so accommodating. And you want to talk about just a great neighborhood. Everyone there was wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
And that whole neighborhood was hit by the fires, and it was absolutely devastating.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God.
what we tried to do, and this is kind of there's a industry-wide move by all of the location managers to anytime we've scouted locations in those neighborhoods that were effective, we tried to reach out to the homeowners and say, "Hey, I've got pictures of your house that I took a year before the fire. Would you like them for your for the insurance
Yes.
claims?"
Yeah,
And so we
no,
were able to do that for a bunch of houses on that street, which I mean, it's the least we can do.
that's wonderful. The film industry sometimes comes through, and that's just such a wonderful little example.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about Dead to Me. What an
Sure.
incredible show.
The show is set in Laguna, that's an interesting challenge creatively because obviously we didn't shoot a lot in Laguna. We shot most of it in LA, and quite a bit in San Pedro. But it's interesting because if you don't live in LA, Los Angeles and Laguna probably seem pretty similar
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
If you live in LA, you see those differences. And we didn't just want to do, oh, well, we'll ignore the differences and we'll just kind of embrace LA because it's pretty much the same. No, we wanted the feel of Laguna. We wanted people to look at it and say, this isn't Los Angeles, this is Laguna. But still, we had to shoot in Los Angeles to do that. So it's trying to find those certain things, just the sloping of the hills, making sure that the ocean, whether or not it was there, that the ocean always felt like it was right there. Anytime you can get the water in a shot, always try to get the water in the shot. Stuff like that to really just kind of sell that Laguna feeling.
And I take it that Laguna wasn't like an option because of it's not within the TMZ or it's not necessarily a price
I
conscious.
mean, there's distance from Laguna. Was the Laguna film permitting offices over there were super nice, and we would always go there to shoot B-roll every
Mm,
year
yeah.
just to get some more footage over there, and they were always super nice about it. Laguna itself it wasn't a daily option for us. It was just too far to drive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a great it always kind of felt like a vacation when we would take the long trip out to Laguna, and we would spend the day there, and everyone there was so wonderful. But yeah, it wasn't the kind of place we could get out to, 2 or 3 times a season with an entire film crew and all the actors and stuff like that.
Wonderful. I love that. The positive filming embrace in a community is always really nice and welcomed. Speaking of that, because you mentioned the different cities, what's your opinion on these permitting prices and all of these things that go on within Los Angeles? Can you see a difference within these smaller communities and working with Film LA? Do you see?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of news now about a bunch of different municipalities are raising a lot of their fees. That is going to affect independent filmmaking, I think, more than anything else. I think that the bigger studios will be able to absorb that to a certain degree,
Yeah.
But it all adds up, and that's the thing. It's every time. It's not that you're paying a little bit more for this permit. It's that you're paying a little bit more for every permit you do for the run of the show, for every police officer that you hire for the run of the show. When these fees go up, and I know a lot of police officers are not getting the money that we're paying. It's going towards more municipality type
Bureaucracy.
administrative fees. Yeah, exactly. And I get it. I mean that money's got to come from somewhere to make these things happen. But yeah, I think it's independent filmmaking. It's gonna hurt a lot more, which is a shame because people talk a lot about you can't shoot low budget in LA anymore. But from my point of view, I think you have to shoot low budget in LA because there is such a perfect structure here. Like there's a system to make it work, and people know how to do it. And you can call in favors in LA that you can't do in Idaho, you know, to put those things together. So it is so much. Yeah, it's really easy to say that, you know, because budgetary things, it's not a good idea to film low budget in LA anymore. But when you do it, and you can do it, and I've done it many times. I just did a movie called The Dink, which is
Oh,
another it's a another independent film,
Ben
and
Stiller.
with Ben Stiller, yeah, Ben Stiller and Jake Johnson once again, and Josh Greenbaum was the director, who was wonderful. And yeah, I don't think we could have shot that movie anywhere else. It's just the things like, you know, Burbank Parks just absolutely bent over backwards to make it happen for us. You
Wow.
know, we shot at the we shot at one of the Burbank parks for like the finale of our big pickleball versus tennis match. And we're like, yeah, we gotta change a bunch of things. We gotta do all this. It's gonna be like, you know, a week's worth of prep. And they're like, yeah, we're excited. What can we do? How can we help? And like, you don't get that outside of LA. You know, they don't understand it. You gotta explain it to them, and eventually you can make that happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great working with all of these different places that understand filming and understand that you're under the gun.
Yes. Yes. You've done a lot of low budget too. I mean, I'm looking at your IMDb early on in your career. You did one of the greater noir giallos, I Know Who Killed Me, with
Yes, I
Lindsay
did.
Lohan.
Yeah.
Which that is an interesting film. I love that. How did you come
So
about with that?
that one was, and I don't think I don't think I'll hurt anybody's feelings by saying this, but that was a very troubled time in Lindsay Lohan's life.
Yes.
Um, she she would not show up to set frequently.
Oh my
And
God.
so the only reason I worked for, I think probably like 2 or 3 weeks at the end of that show, and the only reason I had it was because we had to. She didn't show up to set enough that a bunch of things had to be reshot, and so that the original location assistant on that show went on to something else. So then I jumped in to do those last few weeks, which I think at that point she seemed completely professional during that phase. So I think she went through some tough times, and it's all very well
This
documented. But I
is,
think
yeah,
she came out better on the other side.
absolutely. And we always love hearing those success stories. I think that's a great point that you bring up, though, is that something that people like are not completely conscious of is that sometimes talent isn't always cooperative. I've heard stories myself where people refuse to come out of the trailers and then you lose a
Yeah.
whole day on this lot. So that is one great thing that people have to be like kind of like super conscious of is that the location manager, the producer, the director can all do their jobs to a perfect T, and then this last thing can fall through. So,
It's true, but you know what I would say more than anything, that always makes for great headlines. I would say more than anything, I've worked with a lot of different actors that that were kind of like had tabloid stories about them and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is gonna be like. And they ended up being, wonderful. Colin Farrell at the time when we shot the second season of True Detective, he was kind of in the tabloids a little bit. He was a Hollywood bad boy, but absolute consummate professional
oh my,
on set all the time.
yeah.
Friendly with the crew, made everybody feel great. So it's a lot of the stories you hear are kind of drummed up a little bit in order to sell tabloids and stuff like that.
We
Most of these actors I've worked with, but they're really great. They're wonderful with the crew. Um, yeah,
we live in such a weird industry where we are like kind of like blue collar people just trying to like get this done, and
yeah.
then we're brushing up this like super glitzy glamoury side of the world, which is so crazy to think about. You've had your fair share of working with like A-list talent. You were part of Bombshell, which was
Yes.
a hit.
So the creative decision behind that movie was everybody kind of knew the story from the news. Everyone knew the characters because they're all over the place. Their faces were everywhere. And so in order to sell the emotional impact that this was a real thing that really happened, um, it was very much about trying to get the authenticity as much as
Mm.
possible. And so we tried to do that with the locations as well. And the art department on that one was incredible. So you obviously you know what Fox Studios looks like because you see it on TV. But we wanted to make sure that behind the scenes, the bullpens, all of that stuff matched what was really there. And so we took over the LA Times building for a month and did massive construction there in order to create a pretty much foot by foot floor plan that matched the actual Fox studio. So what you're seeing on there is exactly what you would see if you were behind the scenes at Fox. Interesting to watch the evolution of downtown LA over the 20 years I've been here. When I started, the whole idea of, oh yeah, well, we're going to shoot our movie downtown. We're going to find a bunch of empty warehouses. We're going to find a bunch of empty parking lots. We're going to pay no money for them. And we're just going to kind of move in and turn it into a backlot for us. Like that was a thing you could do
Mhm.
20 years ago. That totally worked. And then everything becomes more and more gentrified. They're building a lot of, a lot of these big condos and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and suddenly those, and obviously losing all these parking lots. So suddenly the affordability of downtown LA starts to drop off, and you can't do those things anymore. And now we're moving into kind of a more interesting time since COVID,
Mhm.
where work from home is becoming a much more popular thing. And so people say, well, why am I spending all of this money on office space or whatever
Mhm.
if people are going to be able to work from home? And no one, I still think to this day, we don't know where that's going to land.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a whole lot of like a lot of things are becoming empty and then they're not, and then something else is being built there. And so it's definitely trying to find its level
So
right
true.
now of what that looks like. And all you can really do is you jump in and you find these locations like, oh, this just got built, but no one's in there yet. Let's shoot it.
You enter some kind of like high profile places with no good deed. Your mansions are beautiful. I
Yes.
I read that the mansion or the house that Lisa Kudrow and Ray Romano's character is actually a set. Is this
It
correct?
is. Yeah, yeah. So that was a really interesting one. Obviously, I mean, when you want to talk about, a location being a character in a show, you can't get any more than that house.
Yes.
So that was Stevenson and Nina went out scouting before I came on the show. They found that house and they found it just driving around. And they
Hmm.
they just like stopped and they're like, oh, that's it. And they popped out and they went and they talked to the owners who'd never had filming before. And so from the exterior, they found it and they're like, this is perfect. And then based off of that exterior, Nina built the set.
Incredible.
And the set was one of the greatest sets I've ever seen.
Why do you
Just
say that?
it was so detailed and it so felt like a true representation of what was there, even though I'd been in that house
Yeah.
and I knew what you're seeing is not it.
Yes.
But you can walk up to the front of that house and then if you then step in the set, you feel like you're there. All of the elements tie it together, and it was just so big and so beautiful. And yeah, it's just like when you're standing in the middle of that set, you just feel like you're in the greatest house that's ever been built.
I felt that way. And it was that really plays into the whole story of No Good Deed because everyone's fighting over this home.
Yep.
And I thought that was such a great thing. You have a lot of like street kind of there's like walking shots, there's a lot of
Yep.
but you still kind of maintain a lot of the story inside of the home, which I thought was a great balance. At
Yes.
one point you go to Elysian Park, is this correct?
Yes, absolutely. Love Elysian Park.
Elysian Park is kind of underrated in my opinion. I mean, I had the opportunity to visit myself a couple of years ago, despite being a native Angelino, and I could not believe the views and the scenic panoramas that was in that place.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was like a great little story point as well. The fact that their child is like a Dodgers fan, and you could see the Dodger Stadium in the back, which I thought was so touching.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
Yeah, no, Elysian Park is wonderful because you absolutely do. You get nearly 360 views. But what's especially cool is you look one direction and you see the city, and you look another direction and
yeah.
it's more residential. And it may not even be LA. It could be something else.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, that whole area is also so authentic. It could be San Francisco, the way that those hills climb up. Um,
Yes, yep, absolutely, yeah.
Such an
And
incredible.
what's interesting about Elysian Park, which a lot of people don't know, is the one spot where you can see everything is the helipad. That helipad is used for rescues.
Hmm,
So anything that goes on that helipad, whether it's, equipment or it's vehicles or set pieces or whatever, the rule is you need to be able to move that at the drop of a hat. Because if they get the phone call that a helicopter's coming in, it needs to be cleared.
oh
The
my,
whole thing needs to be cleared. So anytime you see anything at Elysian Park, and I think No Good Deed's a really good example because we kind of use that as a parking lot for a
yes.
scene. So
Yes.
basically, every car you see parked there, there's a person holding the keys to that car, about standing about 10 feet behind it, ready to at any moment jump in that car and drive it away. So if a helicopter lands there, and that didn't happen to us on No Good Deed, but it's happened to me on shows before. No,
Really?
yeah, I think it was True Detective season two. I think we were filming up at Elysian, and yeah, we had to clear the pad because a helicopter's coming in.
Um, Darren, I want to talk about a little bit about like your routine from day to day with locations. I know some days location managers are playing scouts, other days they're playing assistant location managers, and some days they're playing LMs. What is your routine when you're in an LM?
I like to open set every day. I always like to be there with the key. I mean, they're usually come in like they'll be there to meet catering and stuff like that, but I always try to be there at least an hour before call,
Yes.
just to get everybody in, get everybody settled, make sure that my keys have what they need, make sure that the director has everything that they need, that everything is exactly the way they laid it out. Because those opening moments of every set can be some of the most crucial because that's when you look around and say, yes, this is exactly what we envisioned on the tech scout,
Yeah.
or you look around and say, no, this isn't what I wanted. What can we do to change it? And so it's really there's a lot of things that happen in that beginning, and it's really that's kind of the first time I breathe every day is when the camera rolls for the first time because at that point okay, we're settled, it happened. Now I can go get
I
breakfast.
would love to go down some of the projects, those key projects, Dead to Me, No Good Deed, and Self-Reliance. What is one? I know we mentioned with Self-Reliance that RSI Pomona came through, but what is one location maybe from each of these shows that you'll never forget? Maybe not even some of the hero locations or key locations, but something that
Um,
really stuck with you.
One thing I'll never forget from Dead to Me was there's a Boy Scout uh, headquarters building in San Pedro
Hmm.
that we've used a bunch because we use it for an exterior police station. But
Mhm.
they've also got a great beach, so we did that. We used that for Mexico. We set up a bar there for Mexico and stuff like that.
Wow.
But so the third season of No Good Deed. Um,
Dead,
there's a
dead.
lot of things, or sorry, yeah, Dead to Me. The third season of Dead to Me, there's a lot of things going on that, th so that was when Christina Applegate got sick. And she's done a lot of interviews on her MS diagnosis.
Yes.
And so when we started that show, um, we didn't know, and I don't think she knew at the time what was going on. But she was obviously going through a lot. And that was also right in the heart of COVID. So we would. there's a million other things that kind of like things you could never prepare for that went wrong. And so there was a lot of stops and starts on that show. Um, Christina, the fact that Christina was always very much like, no matter what happens, we have to finish the show, for the fans, for everybody. She was absolutely inspiring. Everything she went through to make that happen, she was really the driving force, and just absolutely wonderful, and just this emotional anchor for everybody on the show. And it was great. But there were times when it got too much for her, and we had to shut down for a little while, and we shut down several times for COVID and stuff. So Boy Scout Ranch is the one I remember. They're absolutely wonderful there, and I love it. And it's a great, if you've never shot there, you definitely should check it out. It's a
Okay.
great kind of like little hidden gem location. But we went there. I feel like we set that location up to shoot about 3 times
Mm.
before we actually filmed the scene we were going to film there. We would get there, we would set it up. God, we were going to coming back from Christmas break, and that was the first thing we were going to shoot. And it was all set up, and everybody shows up to shoot, and then we get a phone call that 15 people have tested positive with COVID.
Oh,
So, and we're like, shut it down, get out. We can't do this. Never mind. Yeah, we had to shut everything down for like at least a week, reschedule that for later on down the line. So that location we set up to shoot so many times
yes.
until we finally got it. But they're wonderful there. They're great. It's a wonderful place to shoot, and they were very patient with us.
Yeah, acts of God are always really interesting. We had an opportunity. I was part of a commercial when the fires started. The day that the fire started, the
Yep.
morning of, we were landing in Silver Lake, and the ash was raining down on us, and everyone had just landed. We had already parked the crew cars and everyone,
Yeah.
and we basically had to call it off. And that was like one of the tough decisions, when
Yeah.
you're part of locations. But luckily, insurance comes through and kind of like takes care of everyone. So you touched on Jake Johnson and what a wonderful collaborator he was. You worked twice with Liz Feldman. I would love
Yes.
to hear about that process because she is like a certified showrunner.
Yeah.
Netflix is behind her. All of these things come into play. So, is this an intimidating process? Are you working closely more with the producers? What is it like?
I work with Liz quite a bit. I would say, I mean, yeah, we're always working more with the producers because
Yeah.
there's so much of our jobs that kind of link in like that. But yeah, I worked with Liz quite a bit. Liz is great, and she's awesome, and she as a showrunner, as a creator, and as a director as well. She she gets the story. She's a storyteller, I think, above
Mhm.
anything else. And so she's really great to talk to, and you can say like, okay, so these are the challenges, whatever, and she'll be like, I don't care about that. This is the story. This is what matters. I'll rewrite the other stuff. If that's a problem, we can fix that.
Yeah.
I just care about the story, and she's very upfront about that stuff, and
Wow.
it's very easy to talk to in that way. And yeah, she knows what she needs, and everything else is just kind of like, well, that would be nice. It'd
Yeah.
be nice to have this. Yeah, I guess this looks better than that. But as long as the story is being told, as long as the characters are being serviced by these things, and yeah, I mean, I think one of those, I think that No Good Deed is a really good example of, I had this picture in my house when I was picture in my head when I was reading the script about Luke Wilson and Linda Cardellini's house,
Oh,
that mansion.
what a great, yeah.
Yeah, and that house in reality is astounding. It's perfect. That was not a stage. That's a real house.
Yes.
And what was so interesting about that is you're telling the story about characters that don't want to live there. They want to move to this other house.
Yeah.
And how do you do that with a house that's so amazing?
Oh my God.
And the way the story is told, I think, tells that tale so well that these
Mhm.
are characters that are in the wrong place. It's not that the house is wrong, it's
Yes.
the wrong place for them.
Yes.
And you feel that so much, and it tells so much about the characters, about it's not just that they're out of place in the house, they're out of place in their lives. That they are peoples that are standing in a place, a point in their life that they're not where they're supposed to be. And that house, and certainly the way that Court Fay, the cinematographer, was able to shoot it to make it feel big and voluminous and lonely and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. I think that house also felt very much like a character in that show.
It totally comes through, and that's such an excellent thing that the point you make, because as location managers, you kind of have to play storyteller yourself in your mind. You're like, okay, well, this is what the director and producer told me, and this is what I have to come up with. And I know that they're kind of missing these pockets, but I want to kind of like fill them in this way. So these are all these different houses that we're going to present to them.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point.
But you also, what's interesting is you have to pretend you don't have an opinion
Yeah.
a lot of times.
So
You have you have to kind of pretend. You have to just
yes.
kind of be like, "Oh, I'm just a location manager." You're like, "I don't know, is this right?" And you know exactly what you know if you're showing them something that's right. You know if you're showing them something that's wrong. And sometimes that's important to show them something that's wrong because
Yeah.
you may put the wrong thing in front of them and have them go, well, wait a minute, there's a piece here
Mhm.
that's taking me down a different avenue, and you can follow them down there and go, oh, well, if you like this feature, I actually have another house I can show you. But yeah, I mean, like you're showing them these different things, and you're just kind of like staying back and you're letting them find maybe the thing that you already found
Mhm.
when you were scouting it the first time, because you want them to feel like that discovery is theirs,
I
because then they'll find more of an attachment and stuff to it.
the phrase is leading the witness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
I love that. You kind of you do film in this big mansions. I wanted to ask you about that. Last time I spoke with Stacy, she was talking about these outrageous numbers that she
yeah,
had to come across. Um, Outrageous to me at least.
yeah.
Are you witnessing this like incline of these like large numbers over the years, or what is are you?
Well, there's certainly no cheap mansions in LA. Yeah, I mean that's once again I think there's we're finding a level now, and I think Stacy said it really well when she said that yeah, back in the 90s there just seemed to be an endless amount of money.
Mhm.
And then in the 2000s there wasn't, and you had to teach everyone that that money's not there anymore. And then now there's this thing of some people like, "Oh, well the money's back. You're
Mhm.
working for Apple. There's tons of money." Like there's this idea that the money's back and the numbers are going up, and then you're also trying to explain to them like, no, everything's leaving LA now because everything's too expensive. So
Yeah.
if we want to do this, we have to do it for less money. And typically when you're having those conversations, it's not about trying to convince somebody that they should take, $500 instead of $750 for their driveway. It's these are conversations about like, should this house be $100,000 or should it be $20,000? And those are that's hard to find. You kind of just have to find the people that are willing to play ball, and that was I feel like that is a new thing more than anything is we have to adjust to having those conversations with everybody right up front to say, even if this is the perfect house, if it's too expensive, we're not going to film here.
Hmm.
Because those are the rules we have now.
Yeah.
That money, there was a time when I think if it's the perfect location, that money will come from somewhere to bridge the gap. And
Yes.
it doesn't
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And that I think is the biggest thing. There's all of those big asks where you say, but it would be perfect. It's like they don't care the way they used to care.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. You do
Yep.
go to some restaurants. You go to Edendale, and then
Yep.
we also see Emerson College.
Yes, where I went to school. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then we
Yeah.
also see the Dresden. So
Yeah.
those are like classic, up and coming kind of classic Los Angeles locations. I mean, we've seen them a couple of times on screen, and the Dresden is like a classic spot. Uh, what was the process for choosing those spaces? Because I know that when you're getting into the cosmopolitan areas, you kind of have to be conscious about street parking and the community and all of these things. So, are there restaurants that kind of pop into your mind immediately when when you see a restaurant scene, you're like, "Oh, I know those owners. It's going to be great. It looks good on camera."
Well, I mean, Dresden was like, when I was coming up, it was right after Swingers came out.
Yes.
And Dresden plays a big role in that movie. So
Yeah.
when I first moved to LA, it was one of the first things was like, we got to go to Dresden. We got to see it. So yeah, that was always one of those things like that and like the Derby, like there was these certain places that as a, upcoming hipster just moved to LA, those were the places that really were like spoke LA to me. And so that you always have those in the back of your head.
Yeah. Since you've had such a seasoned career, some of the advice that you would give to people who are looking into getting to locations or looking even to just get into the film industry.
Yeah. Well, I would say if you're looking to get into locations, and you're watching this, I hope you're not watching it in 2025 because um things are this is this is one I've seen ups and downs in the industry, but I've never seen anything like this. I
Wow.
remember back in 2007, 2008, right around then is when we had another writer's strike, and that derailed everything. I had a really bad 2 years. I almost had to move back in with my parents because things got so bad then. But I would say now is way worse. And I think it's a complete restructuring of the industry right now, and no one really knows where it's going to land. And people want things to get back to the way they were. It's never going to go back to the way it was. There's going to be something different. There could be something better. Like
Yeah.
I remember, when I started out, the DVD market
Hmm.
was huge, and I made so much money off, well, not so much money. I made so much of my money off of independent DVD sales type movies. There was a lot of that going on. And then that pretty much ended right at the beginning of the streaming era. And the streaming era was huge. Everybody's making content. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. That's not happening. And something else will happen to put the industry back. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know that anybody knows what it
Yeah.
is yet. But DVDs are not coming back. The streaming bubble has burst. Whatever comes next is it's going to be a change, and that makes this a very scary time to get into the
Yeah.
business because there's the people who were my mentors haven't worked in 12 months. So
Yeah.
it's a really tricky time to get
Yeah.
into the business now. But having said that, hopefully someone's watching this in 2026 and everything's better. And
Yeah.
so my best advice is if you want to get in locations, just get on set. Be a PA, be work in the sound department, work at like whatever. Because the more departments you can work with, the better you'll understand our job because we facilitate everybody.
Yes.
It's so helpful to me to talk to the grips and be able to say like, "Hey, I get it. I know it's going to be hard to get this equipment from here to there because I've had to do it before.
Yeah.
So let me show you this is how this is a different path I would take where this one's got a ramp and then an elevator over here and stuff like that because I understand that this is not convenient for you guys. I wouldn't want to have to do what you're doing. So, all of those things, you're always kind of constantly thinking about all these different departments. If you've worked in all those departments and
Hmm.
you kind of like see it through that lens. So I would say the best location people are the ones that have done a little bit of everything.
Yes. That's excellent. I love that. And it's also kind of being like a people person, just having great conversations with people and communicative and overall a pleasant person to deal with.
Yeah, you got to have all the conversations, and I tell this to my assistants all the time. Sometimes I'll tell them something they're like, "Yeah, I know," and it's like, "I know that you know,
Yes.
but I got to say it anyways, and I'm going to say it 3 or 4 more times just because that's how you got to over communicate everything because you never know when that one thing you don't say is the thing that falls through the cracks."
Exactly. Speaking about your team, I would love for you to talk about them. How did you find them? Who is your crew? Who are these people that are supporting you, from the project to
So
project?
overall, I would say the most important member of my team is Stephenson Crossley, who he is a location manager that I team up with quite a bit. And the reason is because he was the one that kind of he when we met, I was a key assistant, and he took me under his wing, and he was like, "You should be a manager." And I was like, "Oh, I know, but there's it's so competitive and stuff like that, and blah blah blah." And there was finally it was actually the second season of Dead to Me, and he said, "Listen, I was just offered the show, and you are going to be the second manager. I told him I need another manager, and it's going to be you.
Oh,
And so you're going to move up, and you're going to take this role." And nobody does that.
yeah.
Nobody drags you kicking and screaming into a position like that. So, and then he has mentored me through it the whole time, and just been a wonderful friend and a wonderful partner. And so most of my team comes from Stephenson. He assembled this great team of people. And it's been so wonderful to work with. And some of those people I was a key alongside them, but they have been nothing but supportive to me and everything. So I would say a lot of the people I want to call out are especially the team for No Good Deed was Julie Karelitz was our coordinator, who's absolutely wonderful. And I would go sometimes a week without even talking to her, and I'd just be like, "Hey, I see that everything's happening. Great job. Is there anything I need to know?" And she's like, "No, no, it's I'm on top of it. It's good." And then Nancy Bruno is always an absolute rock star. She had the Hero House in No Good Deed, and she had that in that neighborhood, and she spoke to everybody in that neighborhood on almost a weekly basis, being like, "Hey, we're coming again, we're coming back. This is what we were gonna do," and she just had such a great relationship with everybody there, and I can throw anything at Nancy and know that it's just gonna get taken care of. The other that big mega mansion we had, that was Ian Vasco. He did that one, and he's just so he's got such an eye for detail. And with a house like that, you have to be so careful and so protective of everything. And he's such a good person to throw at something like that and just know that everything is going to go smooth, that everything's going to be protected. If something breaks, it's because there was absolutely no way to protect it.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to go. Um, our closer on that was Anthony Ragonese, who is an absolute legend of the business. Um, he's been with it. He came out of retirement and was just like he was like he's like, "I'm bored." He used to be a manager. He's like, "I'm bored. I'm coming back. I'm going to be a closer."
Wow.
So just to kind of have someone like that working for me with 10 times as much experience as me, I could pull him aside at any moment and be like, "Hey, Anthony, I'm having this problem. Like, what do you think I should do?" And like, the fact that he could advise me at any point, is such a wonderful thing. Stephen Neale is one of my keys, and I like Stephen and I hate him. I like him because he's such a good guy and he's such a good friend, and I hate him because I think the moment I met him, I was like, this guy is better at his job than I am.
Oh my God.
And you just get that feeling right off the bat, and it's like I always, but it's okay because he's very good at his job for me, and he makes me want to be better at my job for
Mm,
those reasons. But he will be a location manager very soon. All of this team will be location managers very soon. But yeah, Stephen Neal will be, and I'm sure I will be working for him before too long. There's a couple people that are typically part. Oh, Peter Gibson, of course. Peter Gibson is one of those people I was talking about. We were keys together for a very long time, and he's a very good friend. And that guy is just one of the most charismatic people you will ever meet. He's just like he's a great talker. I can't tell you how many times I'll walk into a situation with him, and I just sit there and I watch him talk through it, and he knows exactly what to say and what to make people how to make people trust him. That's the most important thing. Is you don't want to go in and lie to people. You
hmm
have to go in and you have to be honest and you have to be genuine, because heaven forbid anybody doesn't trust you in these situations.
Yeah.
And Peter is such a great, genuine person that he's just innately people believe him, and it's true. He's telling you the truth. So, but he has that innate ability to make people believe him. Um, some people I did not have on that show that I always have are Drew Bell, who's another closer, who is great, and he is probably just he brings so much joy to set. And I try to tell him this all the time, but it's like I'll be having the worst day of my life, and he'll show up with some jokes and a smile, and
Oh.
suddenly I'm every the day's all a little bit better. Jeremy Torgerson he was the guy I knew I needed to have on Self-Reliance
Hmm.
when we were doing that show, and I was like, it's going to be, I'm not going to get a wink of sleep because I'm just not going to have enough people. We're not going to have resources. I called up Jeremy and I was like, this is going to be hard. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Like he's the one guy that that he'll never get tired of working hard. He
Oh.
always will do whatever you ask and 10 times more. And so he was he's always the perfect person for any time I do anything that's lower budget. And then Melissa Cummings, my wife, is also my coordinator on
Yes, I
on
saw
on
that.
some
I was
shows.
like,
Yep.
that is the same name, Melissa
That
Cummings. Please speak about her because that's
Yes, yes, she is,
amazing.
and we don't always work together. Obviously, we work great together, absolutely, and she's fantastic. But we always say that our marriage will last longer if we're not working together on every single show. So we don't do every show together, but every time I do work with her, obviously there's that there's a wonderful just kind of communication
Whoa,
we
yeah.
have. Like she always knows exactly what I'm thinking, so she knows exactly what I need.
What a blessing.
Yep.
That is kind of like really unheard of to work in locations with your spouse. That is
It's pretty
such
rare. It's pretty rare, yeah.
that is such an awesome. Did you guys meet in the industry?
No, no, we met. She avoided getting into the industry for years. I think maybe like the first 10 years of us being together.
Oh my goodness.
She just didn't she was like, yeah, I don't want that life.
Yes.
And I kept saying like, oh, but you'd be so good at it, and it's really like she would doing other things. She was managing some stores and stuff like that, and she'd come back to me with her problems. I was like, yeah, those problems sound terrible. I have different problems over here, but I think you would be very good at it. And so finally, I broke her down and got her into it. 5-ish years ago, something like that, right before things took a real turn. Um, so yeah, but she loves it. She absolutely loves it. I've never seen her more happy than when she's working on a show.
How beautiful.
Yeah,
That is a great team that you have, and I'm so happy that it's that they've supported you and like we've been able to be the beneficiaries of great projects from these wonderful locations. Wrapping out, I want to speak a little bit about the projects that you're involved in now. You kind of touched on the Dink.
yes,
Something
yeah,
in the horizon in the future. What are you
yep.
working on? If you'd
What
like.
I'm working on now is Stacey Brashear and I are doing a show together called Imperfect Women.
Yes.
And I'm getting to know she was able to bring me on as kind of like an extra hand, and I've kind of become part of that family now. And her team, which you learned all about her team in the last episode, her
Yeah.
team is absolutely phenomenal, and I absolutely love working with them. And there's really nothing I can tell you that she didn't say. It's a great team and it's a great show, and yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Darren, for joining me. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for doing this show. I think it's really great, and I think a lot of people don't understand what we do. I'm constantly, especially every time I go back to home to New Hampshire, try to explain what my job is to people. People don't even know it exists. So
Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to have a little something out there to say like, oh yeah, well this is it. This is what we do.
this is us. Yes, wonderful,
This is us.
amazing. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.